ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next session, Retail versus Wholesale, Untold Stories of Brokers Who Made the Switch.
I like the music. Kind of high energy, huh? Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us at Fuse. It was no small feat to get here. We literally braved a hurricane. So to everybody that showed up today, thank you. Thank you for being here and supporting our community. I am excited to host the Retail to Wholesale panel. I know that we have some retail folks in our audience today, and I want you to know something. This is not going to be a bash session on retail. What this is going to be is an education about what makes the wholesale community so very special. So without further ado, I am Jamie Cavanaugh from Amerifund Home Loans, and I would love for my guests today to introduce themselves.
I'm McGowan with Next to Mortgage.
Rylan Maddox with Combine Mortgage Group.
Gabi Wiartalla with Next Door Lending.
And I'm Lucrezia with Rascal.
Got a great panel of people, all of whom have been in the retail space, and they're going to share their stories today with you. Derek, I'd like to kick it off with you. How long have you been in wholesale, and what was the driving factor that led you to make the switch?
Been in wholesale for 2.5 awesome years, and the switch, it was, I wanted control, I wanted freedom, flexibility, I wanted to know what was behind the scenes. So I kept pecking on the door of the wholesale channel and finally burst through that bubble, and here we are.
Did you make the right decision?
We'll never look back.
That's right. Rylan, how about you?
Been in the space since 2012, only been a broker for about 2 years now, and the reason I made the switch was I was tired of my service being held back by my company's rate and everything else Derek said about the freedom and the options. So yeah.
Gabi?
So I have been in this space 4 years, going into my 5th, and I have been a broker for about 1.5 years now. The biggest reason I made the switch was transparency, just that simple. The fallacies and unfortunately outright lies that we are unfortunately told in retail became apparent the longer I was there, and I learned more about the broker space and knew that's where I needed to be to best serve my clients.
Phil?
I've been in mortgage lending since 2017. I became a broker on January 5th of this year, so 8.5 months. It's been the best 8 months of my career. And the main reason why I left is because I just wanted to run my own business. And when I was in retail, I couldn't make any decisions on what to do with my money, what to do with the profit that was coming in. And if I want to invest in certain things, if I want to invest in my social media and hire people, I just want the flexibility to do that. And that's exactly what wholesale gave to me.
You wanted to run your business the way you needed to run your business. I think that's been a common theme as we were prepping for today and talking over the last few weeks, is that it's the flexibility, the autonomy, and ability for you to craft your business the way it works for you, because there really is no one size fits all, right? And so we have to understand our audience, our community, our referral partners, and our clients, and we have to be able to set ourselves up to meet their needs. So, Derek, tell me a little bit, couple years here in our space. Let's be honest, retail does some things well. Training and structure is one of those things. What did you learn from retail, and how did you leverage that as you made the transition?
Yeah, you're right. Retail does some things well. They've got structure, and I think from a training perspective, they've got guidance. I think there's a period of time, maybe like that ramp up period in your career, where maybe there's some benefit to that. But then I think anybody out there listening to anything like this, you get to a certain point in your career, you can make your decisions. We all are, whether you're W-2, 1099, we're all entrepreneurs, we're all business owners in a way, and you shouldn't be confined to just what the company has to, makes you do, or I need to run this up the chain. Hey, we're in the trenches, you're in the day to day. You should be able to make the decision. You know what's best for your clients, your realtors, like you said, not somebody in the corporate office that's making a bunch of money off your margin.
Do you think that a lot of people that start in the retail space outgrow it?
Absolutely. I think that's probably what everybody up here did. with that, where I think you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, yep, I know the same routine. Hey, I need to cut this deal to get this client, approved, or to seal the deal. I got to wait for 24 hours to get a pricing exception. Like, well, I'm on the phone with them, and flash forward to today, it's like I can make that call on the fly. Like, boom, this is what I got to do. I know we've seen it for years. I know what to do. This is how we execute this. Or, hey, we need this product. Or, I feel like you even see so many retail places these days with the current market that they're trying to branch into more creative things. But it's like, instead of going to a place and trying to learn how to do that in the broker world, you can go to the place that's been specializing in that.
That's right.
I don't want to learn how to do a bank statement loan with some lender or with my company that's trying to figure out bank statement or DSCR. Let's go to the experts.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that training piece is so important too, because once upon a time, I was that guy telling my employees the myths, the lies. I was a branch manager for a period. And when we talked about what we were doing from an executive level in the branch, the business decisions, it was, how do we provide so many tools to our loan officers, our employees, that to a point they become reliant on us? The goal in retail branches, as good as it is for training, also almost creates a trap for you to never be able to escape, because you become reliant on all those processes and systems. And if you try to develop your own, you hit red tape. And I think that was the key for me, and honestly, I should have switched years before I did, but I was reinventing my company process. I was asking for exceptions to use tools they didn't have in their tool belt, and everything was outside of their process, and that was the light switch. It was, is this the best place for me to run my own business? And then it was obvious after that.
Well, while we're on the subject, what was the pivotal moment where you decided to make the switch?
For me, it was three things. I'm a very analytical person, so it was technology, community, and pricing, right? And so I had, and this was a constant problem over the years, but in the retail space, you develop protect this house, this loyalty feeling, and these are friends, these are people you don't want to hurt. And if you're especially a successful self-producing originator, you walking out of a retail branch will hurt that branch. And the decision, something someone told me was very important, was the first person I owe what I'm doing to is my family, my wife, my kids. The second person is my clients, right? So myself, my family, my client second. And realizing that all of the behaviors and my abilities in that retail space were to protect the company. So my job was not to protect my branch and be afraid to leave because of who that might hurt at that branch. I owe it to my family first, my clients second. And that was, for me, that loyalty piece to get over was when I physically moved from Hawaii to Colorado. Hawaii is still my main market, but it allowed me to go to my company and say, hey, I'm moving. I'm considering a change. And they tried. They gave me incredibly thin margins on my own P&L branch in Colorado, and we put the pro formas side by side, and it was a six-figure difference in my personal income from what owning my own branch in a retail space in Colorado would have been to what my pro forma with my current brokerage setup is. 6 figures to my family, while at the same time being able to deliver better pricing, better rates and terms to my clients. That was a no-brainer. At that point, who am I protecting? My clients and my family.
Absolutely. Gabi, what are your thoughts on, having made the switch? What did you learn from retail? And by the way, your background is really cool, so if we could touch on that for a moment, we're definitely going to touch on some of your backgrounds. So I'm just going to guess that you did not grow up and say, I want to be a mortgage broker. So where did you start? Where were you before?
So I was in an industry probably the furthest away that you could possibly get from mortgages. I was a scientist for 5 years. So I did direct research on cancer, mechanisms in bone development, fetal development, and I made a very different switch to the mortgage industry because I was a single mom at the time. And ultimately, to me, I had an idea of what my life for myself and my daughter would look like, and unfortunately, that career was not going to provide that to me. So I jumped headfirst into mortgages and never looked back. It was in the retail space. And I think that you guys both made really good points about how retail really does. They give you your training. They do an incredible job at it, but it's almost like soldering on training wheels to the rest of your career, right? They make you so dependent on that process, and you really don't learn much about the actual industry as a whole. And I was in retail for a few years, and you know, the longer I was there, the more I just started peeling back these layers on what the truth was. I mean, we've all probably heard the fallacies, and it was just beaten into our brains. Rates and costs are the same everywhere, you guys. They're the same everywhere. They're federally regulated. The Federal Reserve is who dictates those, not us lenders, not us banks. And so that's what we were actively selling to our clients. And then furthermore, for these very large lenders, the lender that I was at, it was, well, if we can't do it, nobody can. If we can't qualify you or we don't have the program, it just must not exist. And so, not only for myself, but think about it, thousands of bankers around me are just getting beaten with this same notion over and over. But obviously, the longer that you're anywhere, you start to learn the truth about the industry. So the skeletons started falling out of the closet, right? Learned more about, you know, brokers aren't the devil, and brokers don't overcharge their clients, right? Broker space was made out to be this, they're overcharging, you have to pay them directly. Just all of these crazy notions, which we in the broker space know is just inherently not true. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me was, after starting to learn all of this, it was also a very big culture of, well, we are your family, and you can't produce anywhere else because we have a war chest to protect you. And we have a war chest that nobody else is going to take care of you. They're going to drop you. You need us when times get tough. Well, what happened in 2022, you guys? Were times easy? No, they weren't. Times got tough, and I saw people who had been at that company for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years have one bad month and were out the door. And it wasn't because they were necessarily producing at the bottom of their field. And there were people who were doing worse. It unfortunately, just the way things were going. And I did not want to stick around at a place that, on top of all of these other layers, was now not aligning with my goals and my values of what I wanted out of a company, because I was looking for a lifelong career, not something that was a 1 month turnover for me. It just was not aligned with my goals.
Well, it's interesting because I think the myth is that they want the loyalty because they're going to reciprocate it. But at the end of the day, we're applying an emotional feeling and decision to a business who, at the end of the day, isn't going to be thinking about Rylan's family, but is going to be thinking about the survival of the business. And that's just the truth. And so it sounds like all of you, and I definitely want to hear from Phil as well, like, you started to ask questions. You started to ask questions, and the more answers you got, the more evident it became that it was undeniable that some of the info you had was wrong and that there were some better options out there. Now, you're our newest wholesale community member, which I love, by the way, and you have a really, really cool background. What did you do before you decided to become a loan officer?
So for 15 years, I was a real estate attorney practicing in New York and New Jersey, and I did closings day in and day out. Sometimes we did 3 to 5 closings a day, and it was really interesting because I always found myself being the most stressed out, getting paid the least, and putting the most number of hours into a file, and it just didn't seem right. You know, here I am at the closing writing checks out because I'm doing settlement, and I'm giving 20 grand to a realtor, 10 grand to a mortgage broker, 7 grand to title, and here's my check, $900. You know, that just didn't seem right to me. So I had to do what was right for me, and I made the switch, and I went into retail, and the first company I was at, to what Rylan was saying before, you know, they want that loyalty from you, and that company decided, after I was there for 6.5 years, that company entered into a merger, and just like that, they made a decision to close all the New York branches, and they closed my branch on a 30-day notice. So I didn't know what to do, so I jumped to another retail because I was basically, blindsided. And then what happened there was pricing. I mean, I have a really good client base because of my history as an attorney. In my community, all of the realtors know me. They all trust me. I can get on the phone with other attorneys and hash stuff out when attorneys don't want to usually talk to mortgage lenders or brokers or realtors. And so people were following me, and I was generating my own business. And the problem I had, and it was one client that made me make the decision. One client sent me a text and said, "Phil, we love you. We can't think about leaving you. You've done such an awesome job on our loan, but your company just doesn't have competitive rates." And that's the answer. And right there, I said, this has got to stop. That was in December of last year. And so I started looking, and, Scott Valens and Rascal and Alex Jokai found me, and they found us actually through Facebook, right? So they found us, and they do awesome recruiting, and it's been the best year I've ever had, and I'm so happy.
That's amazing. Love that.
Thanks.
So let's get real for a minute. Before you guys made the switch, there had to be some apprehension.
Oh, yeah.
The transition has certain challenges. What was your experience? And I would love to hear what you would say to those folks in retail who either may watch this back or who might have joined us this week, to them, to help them really understand what our community is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way I put it is I feel like I was in me and many people that I know that have been in retail, I feel like we were in a bubble. Until we didn't know we were in a bubble. We didn't know what else was out there. It was scary, and you're kind of told, don't poke around, don't ask too many questions. But again, we're all entrepreneurs, we're business owners, and we ask questions, and that's why a lot of us found our way here. I think the whole theme of this, going through what everybody said, which is great, points of view all the way around from all different perspectives, it's loan officers fully, once you realize your worth, then it's game over. I think that's where the light switch goes off, where, even Phil made a good point on, Rascal found him on Facebook. Well, think of how many clients find us on Facebook or social media or insert whatever. We're in the modern day and age. I think if this was 10 years ago, we're having this conference, maybe you needed the bank's name to promote, and they go online because they want to go to US Bank or whatever it is. That's not the case anymore. It's more we're independent. Or also to Phil's point on, hey, the clients loved him. Sorry, your company, the rates. That's the thing. They want you, the individual. I could think, heck, my wife buys clothing based on what influencer says she should buy the clothing, and people buy houses or get mortgages with the person, the influencer, if you will, that they trust because they get to know you. It's more of a personal relationship, I feel like. And I think as soon as you realize that, then you don't need the bank. The light doesn't shine as bright these days, I feel like, on the big bank or lender's name. It's the individual. Any bank or lender out there, there's great LOs, there's not so great LOs, each one of them, but it's the individual. That's who's interacting with the client. Again, not somebody in the corporate office who's taking bips off of the deal. So I think and honestly, to Gabi's point too, about things are pretty tough in 2022 and lots of 2023, and us in the broker world, our margins haven't got cut. But I think everybody in the retail world, a lot of your margins have been cut.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the companies are loyal to a point until it doesn't serve them right. I think about a lot of things in a sports point of view, and once I realized I kind of signed a bad contract in the retail space, that's where I was like, okay, I didn't really know that I even signed this contract, but crap, and if I got to cut a deal, it comes significantly off of my, out of my side of it. I'm like, but they're still making theirs, and also, why don't I know what they're making? That's where you start poking around at the skeletons start falling out of the closet. Like, wait, hold on, I'm cutting, but what are you making on the other side? The broker world, I know how much is there. It's very transparent.
Yep.
Well, and I think that transparency, so comfort breeds complacency,
Yep.
right? And that transparency that you just mentioned, retail does a really good job about taking that transparency away. You are told not to look at the other side of the fence, not to make friends with other company LOs. It's very in the house, whereas this community, AIME, and the wholesale space, it's very transparent, but not forced. It's openness. My first Fuse, I was still in retail. I attended Fuse as a retail loan officer because the myths, right? I was still drinking the Kool-Aid. No way it's as good as everyone says it is. And I remember I was shocked I talked to multiple people here that are they're absolutely crushing this business, and they would go, here's my process. Here's my email templates. Here's my entire business. Swap your logos out, make it your own. And it was just such a giving community. And that goes back to the comfort and complacency. Retail is that LO that's you have to work with me. You can't work with anybody else. They become comfortable in the fact that you don't have options.
Yep.
And you said, as soon as the loan officer knows their worth, it's game over, because the company's not there to say, how do we keep you? It's, we are this. And as soon as you realize what else is out there, what you are capable of without them, it becomes very freeing because it's, I no longer need you, you need me. This space, everything's competitive. If a bank they don't have good pricing for too long, they don't run their business efficiently, we have options. We go to another bank. The banks know that, the brokerages know that. So everything is very competitive. And that keeps it all fresh and growing, and you don't get comfortable. You don't get complacent. It's even worse if your company's complacent.
Absolutely. You know, I don't think a lot of people realize that when we're choosing our wholesale lenders, we're the customer.
Yeah.
When you're working in a retail environment, you're the employee. And
they know where your loan's going.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. And it's really interesting because the theme here is like everything's on a need-to-know basis and don't ask questions. What scenario in life would you walk into where someone said, don't ask questions and just stay in your lane that you would accept? You wouldn't, because this is your business. This is your livelihood. This is food on the table. It's your mortgage payment. It is your livelihood. And it sounds like you were all able to come to the realization that you weren't going to be able to grow anything unique. You weren't going to be able to do the best thing you could do for your clients. And because of that, you had to make the switch.
I think that all three of you all said it, and I don't even know if you realized it. You said, what would you tell people who are fearful, or people are fearful because? If you are making your decision of where to stay out of fear, you have your answer right there.
Yep.
You are making your decision purely out of emotion and not logic. And I know this, and I believe I told you as well, Jamie, I was there. I remember it was a cold December night. I was sitting in the living room with my husband, and all he was doing was asking me questions. He wasn't telling me what to do. He was just asking me questions. And the more we talked, the more I realized, okay, everything I'm saying about wanting to stay in retail is out of fear and emotion, and everything about making the switch to the broker space is about logic. That's it. And everybody, look around. How many people are in this room? Probably, Jamie. Everybody, look to your left, look to your right, look behind you.
Hundreds
right?
and hundreds.
People who are afraid.
Yep.
There's hundreds of people in here. Okay? Each and every one of you are here to grow and learn, are you not? And support each other. This space is so much different than retail, if there are any retail LOs in the audience here, right? You guys know when you clock into work that day, it is cutthroat. The second the person is next to you, it's how to get one more loan than them, how to undercut them. Somebody might not want to help you because they don't want to give up that extra piece, right? It's another opportunity for them. That is not how it is in the broker space. You have so much support and community, not only in rooms like this, but online, right? And I will say it as a woman up here as well, as a woman in a very male-dominated field that is also very competitive. In the broker space, I have found that my biggest supporters are other men in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
My team, my mentor, my husband, right? And that's really, really big because I feel like that was a large piece that was missing in the retail space. Yeah, it was doable. You could be there, you could be a part of it, but I felt nowhere near the support that I do in this community.
Absolutely. Phil, why shouldn't someone be afraid to make the leap?
Everybody should make the leap. I mean it. It's as good as it sounds to be. Everything that was told to me was truthful. I've gotten the most support I've ever had in my entire career. Organizations like AIME, BAC, Go Rascal, I mean, what we do there is just amazing. I never got that support anywhere else. We do 3 Zoom calls a week where we do a deep market dive. We have 10 sessions a week of office hours where people can just jump on to a Zoom call and speak with a former underwriter and help structure deals. The stuff that we do, I never had that in retail. I really felt in retail like I was totally on an island. I was in my office, there was no calls, there was no support. I just had my partner, my buddy that brought me into the business that was with me, and it was just me and him, and we really had nothing else. So my advice is, if somebody's on the fence, make the switch. It might be tough for the first month or two. I was really scared going into January, February, March, switching companies, not knowing what my production was going to be like. But I was so blessed. I had so many units. I've done more units than I've ever done this year, and I'm going to have the best year of my career.
That's incredible. That is incredible.
Can I just say, also as a retail loan officer, if you're still working in your LOS and you're on Encompass or Point or, go demo LendingPad and Arrive. For me, it was Arrive. I was still retail. I was hanging out at a broker buddy's house, and he had Arrive up on the screen and was playing in a 1003. And I was like, what is that? And he walked me through it. Honestly, I'll never go back to retail just because they don't have a Rive. Like, sorry. I will never consider it.
Somewhere Harish is smiling. You know, a lot of retail companies have their own proprietary systems too, which is not necessarily conducive to anybody doing anything unique.
Well, the beautiful thing about that I don't think you realize you mentioned is those were choices. Those were options.
Yes.
You might like a Rive, you might like LilyPad, who cares? You could choose, or the next one, it doesn't matter, there's options. In retail, you're told what to do. And I think, the other piece of it, I think for those on the fence, the retail to wholesale change possibly. If you've ever switched companies, not necessarily retail to wholesale yet, if you've ever switched companies and a previous client or two reached out to you at your new company, that right there is your answer. You're the prize.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't the company that they went back to necessarily. If they reached back out to you because they had a good experience, your answer is right there.
It's relationships. So as we come to a close, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Would it be safe to say that if we have any retail guests that they could come up to any of us and ask questions after the session if they'd like to? We want to welcome you to look to your left and right and really embrace our community because we are all about helping one another.
Please
so
do.
thank
I'll
you
give
all
my
so
phone,
much.
Email, come up.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of it. We've got Neil Dingra coming up. Super excited. So thank you guys so much.